Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt. J.D. Vance mopped the floor with Tim Walz last night, despite it being another 3-1 debate. I want to make clear at the beginning, I like football coaches. I do. Urban Meyer was on the show this week. I do like football coaches. That football coach doesn't need to be anywhere near the Situation Room. Now, I've got a lot to say about this, but how bad was Tim Walz? Let's go and talk to Abby Phillips, Dana Bash, and Jake Tapper doing a post-debate breakdown on how bad was Tim Walz, cut number 31.
I think there was a clear lack of preparation and execution here on Walz's part.
I think actually it's the opposite. I think he had too much preparation.
Maybe, yeah.
He had so many lines that he was clearly trying to say that he didn't listen and said when J.D. Vance said one of the many things he really hit Kamala Harris on, not Tim Walz, but Kamala Harris, he didn't respond because he clearly had things in his mind. I think the lack of interviews that he has done with national media, with local media, it showed. He needed more reps.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, J.D. Vance is much more experienced at this, at public speaking, at defending himself, at pivoting.
It's not because J.D. Vance has been in the Senate for 2 years. It's because Tim Walz is kind of a buffoon and doesn't know anything, and we know that, and you know that, and boy, did it come out in the... Remember, this occurs hours after Iran launched 180 ballistic missiles at Iran. Luckily, Iran's Iron Dome and the assistance of U.S. destroyers in the region prevented great loss of life. One Palestinian man was killed, and 2 other Israelis were injured. And there will be a massive response from Israel somewhere, and it should have dominated the entire debate, along with China. China apparently, Xi Jinping, its general secretary of the Chinese Communist Party, is apparently Voldemort and cannot be named by any of the networks because they all have business ties. Not one question on China. They're threatening Taiwan. They're threatening the Philippines. They have the most massive military buildup in the world. In the ABC debate and the CBS debate, did not have one question about China's malign intentions on the world stage. They didn't bring up Russia and Ukraine. They didn't bring up anything but except the first exchange because of the day's news. They had to shoehorn in something about Iran and Israel. So they did, and Tim Walz gives this answer, cut number 2, to start the debate.
Governor Walz, if you were the final voice in the Situation Room, would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you. And thank you for those joining at home tonight. Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But the expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there. You saw it experienced today, where along with our Israeli partners and our coalition, able to stop the incoming attack. But what's fundamental here is that steady leadership is going to matter. It's clear, and the world saw it on that debate stage a few weeks ago. A nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment. But it's not just that. It's those that were closest to Donald Trump that understand how dangerous he is when the world is this dangerous. His chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he was the most flawed human being he'd ever met. And both of his secretaries of defense and his national security advisors said he should be nowhere near the White House. Now, the person closest to them, Donald Trump, said he's unfit for the highest office. That was Senator Vance. What we've seen out of Vice President Harris is we've seen steady leadership. We've seen a calmness that is able to draw on the coalitions to bring them together. Understanding that our allies matter. When our allies see Donald Trump turn towards Vladimir Putin, turn towards North Korea, when we start to see that type of fickleness around holding the coalitions together, we will stay committed. And as the Vice President said today we will protect our forces and our allied forces, and there will be consequences.
All right, so everyone watching immediately knows he doesn't have any idea what to say. He's got some lines prepared that he wants to get out about Donald Trump. He does not answer the question. He mixes up the terms. He has no clue. Let's cue Senator Vance. Cut number 3.
Senator Vance, the same question. Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
So, Margaret, I want to answer the question. First of all, thanks, Governor. Thanks to CBS for hosting the debate. And thanks, most importantly, to the American people who are watching this evening and caring enough about this country to pay attention to this vice presidential debate. I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are. I was raised in a working-class family. My mother required food assistance for periods of her life. My grandmother required Social Security help to raise me, and she raised me in part because my own mother struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I went to college on the GI Bill after I enlisted in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq. And so I stand here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90 minutes that if we get better leadership in the White House, if we get Donald Trump back in the White House, the American dream is going to be attainable once again. Now, to answer this particular question, we have to remember that as much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos, Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line. Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration. What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies and, God forbid, potentially launching against the United States as well. Donald Trump recognized that for people to fear the United States, you needed peace through strength. They needed to recognize that if they got out of line, the United States global leadership would put stability and peace back in the world. Now, you asked about a preemptive strike, Margaret, and I want to answer the question. Look, it is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys. I think that's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
I think that may be the best answer in any debate I've ever watched. Introduce yourself, set up the stakes, defend your running mate, answer the question, go back to Israel, say yes. If they need to do what they need to do, they do it. It got better throughout. JD dominated from start to finish. There were silly question after silly. I think we had 3 rounds on abortion and 2 rounds on childcare. The world's on fire, and we had 3 rounds on abortion, 2 rounds on childcare. I have 3 important takeaways for you this morning. Number 1, Senator Vance is a superb debater and a very reassuring figure on the national stage, and he will continue to be. Second, Tim Walz is not. He represents the one big decision that Vice President Harris has had to make since Joe Biden dropped out. One time, she had one job, pick a vice president, and she made a terrible decision. Imagine her cabinet and her White House staff, if that's the best she can do. She's going to go back to San Francisco and bring in all these lunatic lefties like Tim Walz. Third, and this is really the most important thing, legacy media is irretrievably broken. CBS, ABC, NBC, they cannot be reclaimed. They have lurched into rote leftism, extreme partisanship, and they cannot pull back to an even minimum level of seriousness on big occasions. Do the executives at these networks not see what has happened? Americans do not trust their news divisions at the legacy networks. It's as if they are run fresh from the college campuses of America by interns as well as hardened partisans from the Obama years. The CBS debate was not as bad as the ABC debate, but really, the world tuned in only hours after Iran, the head of the snake, launched 180 missiles at our ally Israel. Nora O'Donnell and Margaret Brennan spend 10 minutes on it. They spend 10 minutes on 10 million people coming into the country. They gloss over the fact that the Biden-Harris administration has completely failed the people of North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and Virginia. And then 3 rounds on abortion, which we talked about in the last debate, and about which presidents have no control. It belongs to the states. And then we went to child care. It's just so shocking how bad it was in terms of the CBS organization. I don't think a Republican should ever go on another Sunday show. I know Lindsey Graham will. He loves them. I know that they'll go down to 1 million. They'll keep doing it. They've got legacy obligation to do so. But what a farce. Not one question on China's vast military buildup, its threat to Taiwan, the Philippines. No, nothing about the Houthis firing at our ships every day. Nothing at all. It's unbelievable to me that they were that bad, but J.D. Vance was that good. I'm Hugh Hewitt. There's lots more ahead. Stay tuned.